Good afternoon, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me out.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Yes, sir.
afternoon.
Yes,
Today we'll start with cryptography. Cryptography primary purpose is to encrypt, and the purpose achieved is confidentiality. Because we are changing the original information into some other form which the attacker cannot decrypt, only the receiver who has the right key is able to decrypt, and thus we achieve confidentiality. The two kind of keys we'll discuss. One is called symmetric key, other is called asymmetric key. Asymmetric key is also used as called public and private key. Quite often I see some people say private key would be given to others shared. If it is a private key, it is with you, and private key is never shared. One has to be understood that part. Symmetric key meaning both sender and receiver use the same key. Whereas asymmetric key meaning sender and receiver use different keys. And that's how things happen. So I don't know how many of you have used the bank. It can be locked with one key, but to open you need your key as well as the bank manager's key. You need two different keys. It's a little different than public-private key, but concept is whatever key you're using to lock it, same key alone is not good enough to unlock it. And that is where the asymmetric key comes in. So today we look at symmetric key. Again, the book has given a very perfunctory information, not too much in details, but we'll try to go over and discuss what the symmetric key is, little more detail so that you understand what goes on. So cryptography primary is a process whose job is transforming, converting a given data into some other form or some other code, which is what is transmitted. With the assumption that this coded message cannot be understood by anybody other than the recipient. Now, you may also happen that if you're using asymmetric key, the coded message cannot even be decrypted by the sender. But symmetric key, that could be the case. So first we will study symmetric key, and then we'll go into asymmetric key and various implementations of asymmetric key. However, when receiver receives the message has to be decoded or decrypted, whatever call it, before the message could be used. So you can look at the following way. Let's say Alice need to send some message. This diagram is taken from Kuros and Ross, not from the textbook 2, but textbook 1 does give some little better description of security. So if you want to understand conceptually, I would still recommend go through textbook 1. You understand better than the textbook 2. But textbook 2 is what is in the syllabus, so you can't probably ignore it. The term you'll probably use in cryptography is, one is called plain text. Plain text meaning the original message which sender want to send. This plain text is converted into what is called ciphertext. You can also call it encrypted text. But in security word, this encrypted text is referred to as ciphertext. And receiver would convert it back to plain text. So assuming that M is my plain text, M is the message that Alice wants to send to Bob. Alice will use a key, which is the encryption key. and some encryption algorithm. One is the key, another is the algorithm. In security world, hiding the algorithm does not provide any security that can be discovered. So security of encryption lies in the key being chosen and not in the encryption algorithm. So Alice would use a key A, encrypt the text using key A, and this gives you what we call is C, ciphertext. This ciphertext is transmitted. Intruder can see what is being transmitted. It is some encrypted form. So even saying hello, it will be something XP, some junk characters which the intruder can't make out. At best, intruder can block the message but cannot understand the message. When the ciphertext reaches the recipient, which is Bob, Bob would use a key B, which is with him, run the decryption algorithm, and retrieve the text. When both key KA and KB, if both keys are same, then it is called symmetric key encryption. If the two keys KA and KB are different, then it is called asymmetric key implementation. So in this case, to retrieve a message, Bob would apply the algorithm and the key KB on the ciphertext and get the original message back. And that is the primary basic principle of cryptography. Can you break the encryption scheme? As I said, algorithm is always known. It's the question of key. Now, one is ciphertext only attack. If you simply got a ciphertext, converted text, by using whatever algorithm, by brute force, by any mechanism, if you are able to decipher using only the ciphertext encrypted message, then that attack mechanism is called ciphertext only attack. This information not in the book, but as part of the course, I'm trying to convey what it means, so at least get some understanding of security. In breaking ciphertext only attack, one is the brute force. Apply all possible keys. That may take you a minute or an hour or days or a million years. And some key would work and you get the text. Other is statistical analysis, looking at the text, looking at the data, driving some statistical information out of it. How many times A appear, how many times B appears, something of that kind. Or some other logic based on the statistical characteristics of the ciphertext, try to guess the key and then drive the original text. Other approach is known plain text. I know that whenever somebody write a letter to somebody, first thing you write is dear and the name. That means first word in the encrypted would always be dear. So I know the whole letter. I also know the converted text. Now it is up to me, using these two pieces of information, we can figure out what is the key is. And lastly, chosen ciphertext, you basically somehow force sender to send some specific message. Sender send that message, get encrypted, and then you try to decipher. So this is how the attack typically is. As you said in symmetric key, the both keys used by sender and the receiver, both keys are same. So same keys for encryption, same keys for decryption. And if you have the plain text message M, you apply the key and the algorithm and you generate a ciphertext KSM, and then Bob would apply the same key to decrypt back. The best simple example would be doing an exclusive OR. And that is what primarily being used in most of the encryption algorithm. Let's say consider some data M, use some key K, do an XOR of K with M. When you do XOR with K with M, this is basically encryption. If you do another XOR of this with K, when you do XOR of M with K, this is a associative operation. This could be written as M XOR K XOR K. K XOR K gives you basically 0, and M XOR 0 would give the original message, and that's how you do the description. So at the simplest core, any encryption you'll see some form of XOR being used, though it looks very simple, but the way the number of XORs or iterations are done, that makes it complicated and difficult to break, making a guess of a key. If you are doing only simple XOR, if you have the plain text, if you have the ciphertext, then you can just do XOR with ciphertext with plain text and you get the key. So it's a simple way to do that, but in real life, it is a lot more than doing a plain XOR. So now we have material from basically from the book. So encryption can be done at two levels. One is the link level, meaning on the links, whatever machine sends, at the time of transmission, we do the encryption, and at the receiving link, the other end do decryption. So only during the transmission phase, message is encrypted, nothing else. So there are number of links. At each link, you do encryption, decryption, encryption, decryption, and so on and so forth. And each link could follow its own encryption algorithm, different implementations, so on. Other category is called end-to-end, which is shown by, let's say, black arrow. So machine A or server A would encrypt the data. It will go on the link as it is. They get routed. And when server B receives this encrypted text, it has the key. It will decrypt it. So challenge is the end-to-end is better because then not each router, each system in the network is need to do encryption and decryption, which is a costly operation. And there's the most of the time you'll see the encryption done at the end-to-end level. Just let's look at some simple encryption algorithm, and then we go into the actual algorithm that is given in the course and again at very, very high level. The first scheme is called substitution cipher, and that is the core of any encryption part. Given the text, you substitute this text by something else. This could be done by XOR with other text. This could even be a shift. This could be a mapping. So let's say you have this is the plain text A, B, C, D, F to Z. You got this converted text. And essentially, we are trying to use, for each letter, we are substituting by some other letter. That means you would have a mapping key, maybe from a book or some key code which says A should be replaced by M, B should be by N, C should be by B, and some mapping is defined. And this book or copy or mapping from ciphertext letter to encrypted text is available with sender and receiver, and that way it happens. So if you look at simple case, using this our mechanism, this being the key, the plain text Bob, I love you, Alice would get converted to B gets mapped to N, O gets mapped to K, B gets mapped to N, I gets mapped to S. So this is the original text, Bob, I love you, Alice. The text becomes nkn.s, gktc, whatever. This was the simplest substitution mechanism. And in this case, there is key only is the mapping. What mapping being used? Algorithm is simple. Look at it, put a new key, and you are done. So there is no computation. It is a plain, simple lookup mechanism. Next best you can do is rather than doing one substitution, you can do series of substitutions. So plain text is converted first, then a next substitution, the next substitution, and by doing n number of substitutions, one is and that's how the text would actually appear. So if n is equal to 4, you convert m1, m3, m4, m2, m3, the cycle will repeat, and so on and so forth. And that's what will basically do the conversion test. So basically keep looking at that first character could be used by cipher 1, second by mapping 2, third by mapping 4, and so on and so forth, and then keep repeating, and it becomes more complicated than the single mapping, and that would work out. So if D would be converted from M1, O would be from M3, and G would be from M4. This is the mechanism given using 4 mappings, and that's how. So just because you have one key, you need to maintain n number of keys and convert, and you should be fine. So we talked about symmetric key. Both people use same key. Other is asymmetric key, meaning sender and receiver use different keys. Using different keys requires a lot more higher computation power. Using asymmetric key probably requires 100 times more computation power than using symmetric key. Of course, it gives you better privacy, better security of message, but computation cost is way too high. So in general, this asymmetric key usage is not used to encrypt the plain text, but this is generally used to exchange a secret key. Like when you do HTTPS or secure HTTP, we use public and private key only to generate a shared secret key between the browser and the shared secret key is chosen, then that shared key is used for encrypting the entire text. So actual data encryption happens using symmetric key, but for each session, a different symmetric key is used. And to use the symmetric key, the mechanism of public-private key or asymmetric key model is used. Asymmetric key model generally does not use in exchanging data because it will be very, very compute intensive and will take too much time and resources. So let us look at today what the basic algorithms of symmetric key are also called secret key encryption. In secret key encryption or symmetric key encryption, 3 components. One is the encryption algorithm, one is the secret key, and then to decrypt the decryption algorithm. Typically, decryption algorithm is reverse of encryption. So whatever steps you follow in encryption, just follow these steps in the reverse order, and that becomes decryption algorithm. The most common protocol, the first protocol started was DES. Later on, it became 3DES because DES was just short, and so it became vulnerable. So depending on the key size determines how much time you need to take to decrypt using brute force. DES uses 56-bit key, and with today's computing power, using brute force, one can break down or identify the key within a matter of minutes, not even hours. So as such, DES today not being used per se. With 3DES or more better, we end up using AES called Advanced Encryption Security, and DES is Direct Encryption Security. One thing has to be clear that anytime you are looking at encryption, security lies in the key to keep the key secure and not hiding the algorithm. You can hide the algorithm, somebody can always figure it out, and then your whole security is broken. So challenge is how do you choose the key and how do you distribute chosen key to the other end. That makes all the difference. Because key is not known, then you are not even secure. The larger the key size, better do security. Smaller the key size, it's easier to break down by using brute force computing. And that's the part one has to understand. So DES or Data Encryption Standard was first defined by NIST, National Institute of Standards, by NIST, by US government, and this got implemented first time. It actually uses 56-bit keys and convert 64-bit input plain text, meaning bytes, 8 bytes is converted using DES, the next 8 bytes, the next 8 bytes, and so on, so forth. Because we are using a block of 64 bits or block of 8 bytes of plain text, and we are not using in the running flow. We always use a block of text, whatever the block size is. Typically, it could be 64 bits or 128 bits or 192 bits or whatever size, using a block by block, and that's why it is called a cipher block chaining mechanism. Initially, when DS came, it was secure. The only way to break is using brute force. There was no analytical weakness could you find in algorithm, but by doing a brute force, it could be a key could be identified within a day, and now with high computing power, one can even do in minutes. What is being said is all your security lies in compute power, the raw compute power. And with quantum computing coming in, the number of compute operations which could have taken million years could be done in months. With that kind of being achievement with quantum computing, security has to go completely a different paradigm. But that is beyond our course, so we'll not go that route. But just to give an idea, the moment quantum computing takes place, security has to undergo complete paradigm shift because brute force identifying all tries could become a lot more easier because time gap is reduced. Quantum computing gives you very, very high compute power. And then one has to look at how to achieve security, and maybe you look at different ballgame altogether. Because D was broken, and primary reason was not with the algorithm, but because it was using only 56-bit keys. So made 3DS, use 3 keys. I mean, use 3 keys together, they make it 168-bit keys, and that's how things work. The basic algorithm can be looked at from this diagram. I've taken the diagram for easy understanding for tutorials point. Given the URL, you can look at. So you have an input plain text of 8 bytes or 64-bit plain text. And DS algorithm performs 16 rounds of substitution and encryption basically. So first you do initial permutation of the bits, basically shuffle the bits in a certain order. Then you have the 64-bit key, which is actually converted to 48-bit by doing some shuffling. And then each round takes 64 bits of data, apply the key, which is the XOR and substitution, get data for the next round, apply the key again, and do this 16 times. And what you finally get after final permutation, you get the 64-bit ciphertext. And this, unless you do a brute force, you will not be able to detect the key and figure out. And in that sense, this is the key operation. So 64-bit plain text, initial permutation, final permutation, and in between 16 rounds of what is called a F operation or function of converting using the 48 bits of keys, and that is primarily the DS algorithm. So the way the algorithm operates, you given a plain text, let's say 8 bytes each, because 8 bytes would give you 64 bits at a time. You have a key of 64 bits. Actually, the key length is 64 bits. Sorry for the typo error there. Even the key is 64, 56 bits are used. You look at the 64 bit key as 8 bytes and last bit of each byte. So with 8 bytes, it's assumed that 8 bits correspond to parity, and then those 8 bits are not considered. So last bit of each byte is not considered. And since we removed 8 bits from one byte each, so 64-bit key becomes 56-bit key. And then the algorithm applied in 16 rounds. As we said, and the round consists of first initialize the message, shuffle the 56 bits of keys, then each ith block, what you get, is split into 32-bit two halves, Li left half and the right half, 16 iterations, so you have L1 and R1, then you get L2 and R2, L3 and R3, and so on and so forth. Again, the key is shuffled. Given the 56-bit keys, you break into two parts of 28 bits. Again, shift left number of times, 1 or 2 times, depending upon which round number. Combine them again, take 48 bits, and then apply into 48 bits and do the encryption. I'm going to look at the example how this is done. Now these 56 bits, keys are permuted, produces my key, and that key I done with XOR operation is the following. Whatever the previous round of right half has, that becomes the left half for the next operation. We see that in a diagram, and we take the left half, we take the right half of input, apply the key, apply a function, perform an XOR with the left half, and generate the right half. And that's how you do this 16 times. And then you finally get it. So you can look at, we have a plain text, 64 bits, do a permutation, that means shuffle the 64 bits in particular fashion. Now divide 32 bits of left half, 32 bits of right half, and perform 16 rounds of operation. In 16 rounds of operation, take the right half, perform a function f, that will give you 32 bits. Apply the XOR with the left half. So key is used in this F part. When we use the right half, we do some permutation, apply the key here, produce, do the XOR with Li, and then we gives you right half. So R1 gives you R2, R1 by itself becomes L2. So right half is just taken as input for the left half, but right is transformed through F operation or F function, XORed with the left half, and then you get R2, which is 32 bits. Now this L2 and R2 becomes input for the next round. Same process is repeated, L2 and R2, perform this key operation, do the jugglery, keep doing, and that's how things really would happen. The way the function F works, we'll explain that in a way. You take the 56-bit key, divide into two half 28-bit each, perform a rotation, do a permutation, then apply the function, and then do the job, and process repeats. Round 1, round 2, round 3 to round 16, you get cipher text. And F operation is described, and I'll give you F operation little more detail in the following way. So you take the left data half, right data half, do the substitution. Given the key, you do shuffle permutation, and using the right and key, do substitution each bit by bit to others. Permutation of the 32-bit, do XOR with left, and produce the new right half. So R1 becomes R2 as it is. L1 XOR with some function of R1 gives you L2, and that is what the DS operation. Book doesn't talk about details except giving you very, very minor operations. So we'll not go into mathematics details, and that's how things will work. To give a little more details of the way function F works, how do we get function F? So we get 48 bits out of 56 bits. Now 56 bits, you divide into 28 bits of each. Left shift 1 or 2 bits, depending on which round you are in. Combine them back, and then take the 48 bits. Now we have the Ri of -1 or the right of 32 bits. To do an XOR or substitution, I need again 48 bits, because I've taken 48 bits of key. So I need to convert 32 bits of Ri minus 1 into 48 bits. How do we do that? That means I had to add 16 bit extra. So way it is done is, these 32 bits is divided into 8 chunks, each of 4 bits. 32 bits divided into 8 chunks, each of 4 bits, and each chunk is extended into 6 bits. So we add 1 bit before, we add 1 bit at the end. So each chunk from 4 bits becomes 6 bits, and since we have 8 chunks, 8 into 6, we get 48 bits. Each chunk is expanded by adding left bit and right bit. Essentially, each chunk, you have a left chunk and the right chunk. So you take the left bit from the left chunk and right bit from the right chunk, and that's the way chunk from 4 bit becomes 6 bits, and because of 8 chunks, it becomes 48 bit, and I'll show that in a diagram in the next page. And then you basically perform, you got the 8 chunks of Ri after this, you have a 48 bits of key, perform the operation and you get Ri, and this you do with left key, and then it becomes your basically. So this is the way that 8 4 chunks, 4 bits, 4 bits, 4 bits, 4 bits. Now look, let's say this chunk. So these 4 bits are as it is. Rightmost bit of first chunk become the first bit, leftmost bit of the second chunk, and leftmost bit of third chunk become the right. So each chunk gets its rightmost bit become the left bit. For the leftmost bit of right chunk become the rightmost bit. So each 4 chunk is converted into 6-bit chunk, and the 8 chunks of 6 bit each becomes 48-bit chunk. And now I have a key again with 48B. We perform the XOR operation, and that gives us our right half. And that's the way it is done. So essentially, this is what the DES or data encryption standard algorithm is. Whatever operation we did, same operation is done in the reverse way at the receiver end. Receiver would decrypt it and get the text. So only challenge is the key. Initially, systems were not very fast. So early 90s, 56-bit keys were good enough. But today, this key can be easily broken in few minutes because high compute power using 56-bit key can easily be broken and key can be identified. Let's move to 3DS. Again, this is still not trusted that much, and by default today we use a different encryption algorithm called AES. The beauty of DES is because we are all doing bits manipulations, it can be done efficiently in the hardware than in the software. Because DES was broken, so US government in 1997 called for an open invitation to provide it with a new encryption system. And only thing they said is, whosoever proposes, the algorithm should be available worldwide. So one cannot say that algorithm is secret because hiding algorithm does not give secrecy. There should be no royalty, anybody should be able to use it, and design should be public. It should be known to everybody. So security would lie in the key and not in such a way that algorithm, even the algorithm is known, because you don't know the key, you cannot decrypt it even though you know the algorithm. They get number of bits, they selected 5 people, and selection criteria are based on the cost, computing cost, algorithm use, and simplicity of implementation. And out of the 5 finalists, one Brindle was chosen primarily because it was easy to implement and efficient to implement. The algorithm works in the following way, which are adopted by US government in 2001. So where the algorithm works is, it can actually choose a key size of 128-bit, 192-bit, 256-bit. In fact, as per the original author, Riendel, the key size could be any multiples of 64-bit. DES work only with 64-bit blocks. AES can work with blocks of 128 bits, more block size. And because key is more, bigger size, so it gives you a lot more better security. Again, depending on the key size, whether 128 bit, 192 bit, or 256 bits, number of rounds would vary from 10 to 14 or 9 to 30. First is maybe initialization and leaving that remaining rounds. In DS, number of rounds 16 was fixed. Here, round will vary depending on the key size. If it's a 128 bit, use 9 rounds. 192 bit, use 11 rounds. And 256 13 rounds. Plus one initialization, that makes it 10 to 14 rounds. All rounds are identical except the last round. But there's no mixed column. I'll talk about what a mixed column really means. It is much better than DES. Assuming that a brute force technique for each encryption takes 1 second, then with the same key mechanism, using AES would take about trillion years. And that means it is a lot more secure from time-wise. It cannot be broken just like that. The diagram is from the book, and that is how your AES algorithm works. A given plain text is divided into 16 blocks, M0 to M15, assuming your data is 128 bits. So you basically have 16 bytes of 8-bit each. That gives you 16 blocks. So given text to convert into 16 blocks, do a initialization with permutation, and then repeat these rounds. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 10 to 14 times, depending on the key size. First is the substitution, apply the keys, then the permutation. Where the mixed column works is a given key, let's say 128-bit key. 128-bit key means you have a 16 bytes. So 16 bytes are taken as 4 by 4 row matrix. 4 rows, 4 column matrix, and each value is a byte. So that gives you basically 128-bit keys. And then you do mix rows and columns, exchange it, and that is where the algorithm really works. And at the end, finally, after that, you do the XOR operation of each block with its key size, and then you basically get into that mode. So secret key of 128 bit, again you have blocks into 16 portions, and each block of plain text is XORed with 16 bytes of 16 chunks of keys. The key is 128 bit. You have a 16 blocks, K0 to K16. Do same thing, M0 to M5, and then the rounds are repeated again. And that's how basically you get triple text, and again, this is security. So as far as AES is concerned, you get algorithm summary, you have a 128 bit of input. It is broken into 16 blocks of plain text. If 128 bits means 8 bits or 1 byte each. After initialization, it went into round 1. Then that output of that would be round 2, input to round 2, and so on and so forth. And there's a substitute unit. You substitute by using certain mechanism. And keys are basically, we have taken 128-bit keys, look at 16 bytes, 4 row by 4 column, and then do a rows column form, do a conversion, and with the permutation, you basically shift rows to mixed columns, and then you get 16 blocks of cipher key, XOR with the round of keys, and that's how the AES algorithm works. Your syllabus and textbook has very, very perfunctory details, a 10,000 foot high level view, and that means you are not going to get into details of what the S block is, what the substitution block is, something of that kind. This from the syllabus, so we're not getting into more details. And then you get into that mode and get the AES. The decryption is reverse of what encryption is. You apply round 1 to round 10, you apply the same round in the reverse order and the reverse process, and you get the original text back. So essentially, you apply the rounds, do the reverse, and you get the original data back, and that's how both DES, and AES work. Now, symmetric key, we have two algorithms, DS and AES, and today almost everyone uses AES, and DS is not being used, though it was the first one that was being used. So we started with our cryptography, which is convert a given text or transfer a given text into some kind of a code, which is transmitted. Hacker can see the converted text, but can't decipher the information. Is only the recipient who has the key can decipher. The two mechanisms, one is symmetric key, other is asymmetric key. And symmetric is two algorithms, but very high level, called DES, Data Encryption Standard, and Advanced Encryption Security, AES. And tomorrow onwards, or next lecture, we will look at asymmetric key, that is public and private key, and we also look at how that mechanism is used to exchange the keys, which is Diffie-Hellman algorithm. That's all for today. Sorry for class exchange because you had the EVS class on Tuesday, so I couldn't take the lecture. So next Monday we will look at the asymmetric key and public or private. Any questions, please feel free. Otherwise, thank you.